will recognize him immediately as the star of his own television series, Cheyenne. And here he is, Clint Walker.
Nobody knew the real Clint Walker. While he played the perfect hero on TV's Cheyenne, his real life was falling apart. The 6'6" star was fighting a secret battle with alcohol that almost destroyed his career. In 1971, doctors actually pronounced him dead when a ski pole pierced his heart. But somehow, he came back to life. For 50 years, his family hid the shocking truth about his struggles. Now, fans are finally learning what happened to their favorite cowboy. Clint Walker was born Norman Eugene Walker on May 30, 1927, in Hartford, Illinois. His childhood was shaped by the Great Depression, a time when jobs were scarce and families struggled to make ends meet. His father, Paul Arnold Walker, worked in the oil fields while his mother, Gladys Hulda Schwanda, took care of the home. She was a Czech immigrant who carried a deep sense of resilience, something Clint would inherit. The family moved often, searching for better opportunities in small towns along the Mississippi River. They lived in Wood River and Alton, but no place ever felt like home. Life became even tougher when Clint's parents divorced. With money always tight, he learned to work from a young age. He took on small jobs like delivering goods and working as a grocery clerk, anything to help his family get by. These early years taught him discipline and responsibility, lessons that would stay with him for the rest of his life. Despite the hardships, Clint had one constant in his life: his twin sister, Lucille Neoma, or Lucy as everyone called her. They were born just minutes apart, but couldn't have been more different. Clint dreamed of adventure, while Lucy preferred a quiet life. She married her high school sweetheart, raised 3 children, and spent her time painting. Even as their lives went in different directions, they remained close. Lucy passed away in 2000, nearly 2 decades before Clint's death in 2018. By the time he was 16, Clint was ready to take control of his own future. He left high school and worked wherever he could. He became a riverboat laborer, a bellhop in hotels, and a factory worker, always moving, always searching for something better. Then, in 1944, with World War II still raging, he made a bold decision. He joined the United States Merchant Marine. It was dangerous work. The Merchant Marine played a critical role in the war, transporting troops and supplies across treacherous waters. Enemy submarines lurked beneath the surface, and attacks were constant. 1 in 26 merchant mariners never made it home. Clint joined at 17, serving toward the end of the war. He may not have seen combat, but the experience changed him. He had left the small towns of Illinois behind and stepped into a much larger world. After World War II, Clint Walker took whatever work he could find. He worked on riverboats, in Texas oil fields, and anywhere that paid a decent wage. By the early 1950s, he landed a job as a security guard and bouncer at the Sands Hotel in Las Vegas. The casino was packed with Hollywood stars, big-time producers, and powerful insiders. Walker stood out in a crowd. At 6'6" with a chiseled jaw and broad shoulders, he looked like someone who belonged on a movie screen. He just didn't know it yet. One night, actor Van Johnson walked into the Sands. Johnson had starred in films like 30 Seconds Over Tokyo and was a familiar face in Hollywood. When he saw Walker, he couldn't ignore him. He told Walker he should try acting. Walker didn't take it too seriously. Acting wasn't something he had ever considered. But then, not long after, talent agent Henry Wilson took notice. Wilson had discovered stars like Rock Hudson and Tab Hunter. He knew what Hollywood was looking for. Walker had it. Wilson encouraged Walker to move to Los Angeles and pursue acting. Walker hesitated at first. Security work was dangerous, but it was steady. He knew that in the wrong situation, a gunfight could break out, and he might not walk away from it. Acting seemed like a safer bet, and if it worked out, the money would be better too. In the early 1950s, Walker made his choice. He left Las Vegas and moved to Hollywood. At first, he struggled. He took small roles, anything to get his foot in the door. One of his earliest jobs was in Jungle Gents, 1954. where he played a Tarzan-like character. It wasn't much, but it gave him a little experience. Then, in 1955, fate stepped in. Actor Henry Wilcoxon introduced him to legendary director Cecil B. DeMille, who was casting for The Ten Commandments, 1956. Meeting DeMille was a rare opportunity, but Walker almost missed his chance. On his way to the meeting, he saw a stranded motorist with a flat tire. Without thinking twice, he pulled over to help. By the time he arrived at DeMille's office, he was late. When DeMille asked why, Walker explained. He figured that was the end of it. But to his surprise, DeMille already knew. The person he had helped on the road was DeMille's secretary. That small act of kindness made an impression. DeMille cast him as the captain of the Pharaoh's Guard. The role wasn't big, but it put Walker in one of the most iconic films of all time. More importantly, it put him on Warner Brothers' radar. Warner Brothers was developing a new Western TV series called Cheyenne. It would be the first hour-long Western in television history. The studio needed someone who looked like a real cowboy, strong, fearless, and capable of handling himself in a fight. When they saw Walker in The Ten Commandments, they knew he was the one. He had the size, the presence, and the perfect rugged look. When Cheyenne premiered in 1955, it changed television. It was the first hour-long Western to last beyond a single season. In fact, it was the first hour-long drama of any kind to do that. At a time when most shows were shorter, limited by production costs and attention spans, Cheyenne proved that audiences were ready for something bigger. It ran for 8 seasons from 1955 to 1963, delivering 108 black-and-white episodes that kept millions watching. For Warner Brothers, Cheyenne was a major step forward. It was the studio's first original TV series that wasn't based on a movie. Clint Walker, the man who played Cheyenne Body, played a big part in its success. At 6 feet 6 inches, with a strong but quiet presence, he was perfect for the role. His character, a wandering cowboy with a strict sense of right and wrong, became an icon of the American West. The show's influence didn't end when it went off the air. It helped pave the way for later hits like Gunsmoke and Bonanza, proving that hour-long dramas could keep viewers engaged. It also inspired non-Western shows, showing that audiences would stick around for longer, more detailed stories. Cheyenne didn't just entertain people, it changed how television worked. Clint Walker's performance made him one of the most recognizable stars of his time. His character wasn't just another cowboy with a gun. Cheyenne Bodie was different. He wasn't quick to fight. He tried to solve problems with words before using force. That made him stand out in a time when Western heroes were usually tough and aggressive. Each episode followed Bodie as he traveled across the post-Civil War West, taking on different jobs. Sometimes he was a ranch foreman, sometimes a scout, sometimes a lawman. His backstory gave him even more depth. After losing his parents as a child, he was raised by the Cheyenne before eventually returning to white society. That could have made him bitter, but he never let his past turn him against Native Americans. He treated them with respect, a rare thing for a Western hero at the time. Walker's size and strength made him look like the perfect cowboy, but his calm, thoughtful nature made him unique. He was strong, but he didn't need to prove it. He was a giant, but he wasn't intimidating. That balance made him more than just a typical action hero. Over the years, guest stars like James Garner and Michael Landon shared the screen with him, but Walker was always the heart of the show. He played Cheyenne Bodie in 107 of the 108 episodes. He was the character. His portrayal of Bodie also challenged what it meant to be a man on TV. In the late 1950s and early 1960s, many believed that toughness meant aggression, but Bodie was different. He showed that strength could come from restraint. That made him a role model, not just another cowboy with a gun. Behind the scenes, though, things weren't so simple. In 1958, at the peak of Cheyenne's success, Clint Walker took a huge risk. He went on strike. The problem was Warner Brothers' contract system. Like many actors at the time, Walker was locked into a strict deal that controlled his earnings and career choices. When he first signed on for Cheyenne, he was paid just $175 a week. Over time, that number climbed to $1,250 per week. That might sound like a lot, but compared to the success of the show, Walker felt it wasn't enough. Warner Brothers also took 50% of his earnings from public appearances and refused to let him record music with any label except theirs. Walker wanted better pay and residuals for reruns. Other actors were starting to demand the same. His strike lasted several months, forcing Warner Brothers to bring in a temporary replacement, Ty Hardin as Bronco Lane. But Walker's absence made an impact. Eventually, Warner Brothers gave in, offering him a better contract with more control. His fight with the studio wasn't just about money, it was part of a much bigger shift in Hollywood. Around the same time, James Garner also challenged Warner Brothers over unfair contracts. These battles helped change how studios treated actors. Walker's stand didn't just help him, it helped set a new standard for fairness in the industry. Even after he returned to Cheyenne, Walker never forgot how trapped he had felt under his first contract. He later said he felt like a caged animal during those early years. But by standing up to Warner Brothers, he helped shift power back toward the actors. After becoming a household name as Cheyenne Bodie in Cheyenne, Clint Walker set out to make his mark on the big screen. Hollywood had taken notice of his towering 6 feet 6 inches frame and quiet strength, making him a natural fit for Western films. His first major roles came in a string of collaborations with director Gordon Douglas. In Fort Dobbs, 1958, Yellowstone Kelly, 1959, and Gold of the Seven Saints, 1961, Walker brought his signature stoic charm to characters caught in the untamed frontier. In Fort Dobbs, he played Gar Davis, a fugitive on the run who finds himself protecting a widow and her son from a Comanche uprising. The film was shot in Utah's rugged Kanab Canyon and Paria, giving it a striking Western backdrop. Critics had mixed feelings about its pacing, but audiences appreciated the action-packed story. It wasn't a massive hit, but it cemented Walker's status as a leading man in Westerns. His next film, Yellowstone Kelly, cast him as a fur trapper navigating the dangers of the late 1870s frontier. The story focused on loyalty and survival, themes that resonated with audiences. The breathtaking cinematography captured the beauty and isolation of the wilderness, and the film introduced a young Warren Oates in one of his earliest roles. In Gold of the Seven Saints, Walker teamed up with Roger Moore to play fur traders who stumble upon a gold strike, only to be pursued by relentless outlaws. The film's climax saw the two using wit and strategy to outmaneuver their enemies. While it wasn't a major box office success, it stood out for its action sequences and its adaptation of Steve Frazee's novel, Desert Guns. Walker and Moore made an unlikely but engaging pair, adding a fresh dynamic to the Western adventure. Though Westerns had made him famous, Walker wasn't afraid to take on different roles. In 1967, he joined the star-studded cast of The Dirty Dozen, a World War II action film directed by Robert Aldrich. The film followed 12 convicts given a shot at redemption by taking on a near-suicidal mission behind enemy lines. Walker played Samson Posey, a quiet but powerful soldier who struggled with the idea of killing. His character was a gentle giant, hesitant to take a life but fiercely loyal to his team. One of Posey's most memorable moments came during the film's final battle, where he used his incredible strength to overpower enemy soldiers. The Dirty Dozen became one of the highest-grossing films of 1967 and won an Academy Award for Best Sound Editing. It also inspired multiple sequels and remains one of the most iconic war films of its time. Walker's performance proved he could hold his own alongside actors like Lee Marvin, Charles Bronson, Jim Brown, and Donald Sutherland. It also showed that he could bring depth to characters beyond the Western genre. By the 1970s, Westerns were beginning to fade, but Walker wasn't ready to step away from the screen. In 1971, he starred in Yuma, a television movie where he played U.S. Marshal Dave Harmon. The story followed Harmon as he tried to bring justice to a corrupt town while dealing with the painful loss of his wife. The film had the grit of a classic Western, but despite its strong reception, it did not lead to a full series. The era of the TV Western was coming to an end, and networks were looking in new directions. Even as time passed, Walker never lost his connection to the role that made him famous. In 1991, he returned as Cheyenne Bodie in The Gambler Returns, The Luck of the Draw, a television movie that brought together stars from classic westerns. The story revolved around gambling being outlawed in 1906, giving Walker and fellow Western legends like Gene Barry as Bat Masterson and Hugh O'Brien as Wyatt Earp a chance to share the screen once more. The film served as a tribute to the golden age of TV westerns, allowing longtime fans to see their favorite characters return for one last ride. Walker's career continued into the 1990s, including a guest appearance on Kung Fu. The legend continues in 1995. Though the Western genre had changed, his legacy remained strong. His career after Cheyenne proved that he was more than just a television cowboy. But beyond the cowboy persona, his personal life had its own journey filled with love, heartbreak, and family pride. He married 3 times, and each chapter of his life told a different story. In 1948, at just 21 years old, Clint married Verna Lucille Garver. Their marriage lasted for 20 years, and in 1950, they had their only child, Valerie Jean Walker. Unlike her father, who built a career in Hollywood, Valerie chose the skies. She became one of the first female airline pilots at a time when few women entered aviation. She worked for Western Airlines and later for Delta, flying the Boeing 727, 737, 757, and 667 before retiring as a captain. Clint was incredibly proud of her. He often spoke about her determination and how she broke barriers just like the fearless characters he played. Despite their long marriage and shared love for Valerie, Clint and Verna divorced in 1968. The reasons for their separation remained private, but they continued to co-parent their daughter. No matter what happened between them, Clint always celebrated Valerie's achievements, seeing in her the same adventurous spirit that defined his own life. Years later, Clint found love again. In 1974, he married Giselle Camille Prognard Hennessy, a French-American woman who brought a new kind of warmth into his life. They spent 20 years together, but their time was cut short when Giselle passed away on January 1, 1994, at the age of 61. The cause of her death was never widely shared, but it was a heartbreaking loss for Clint. She was laid to rest at Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City, California. Though they never had children together, Giselle became part of Clint's family and shared his life through some of his most successful Hollywood years. Clint spent a few years alone before marrying for the third and final time. In 1997, he wed Susan Cavallari in Sparks, Nevada. By then, he had stepped away from Hollywood, and their marriage remained mostly private. They were rarely seen in public together, though they did attend events like the Golden Boot Awards in Beverly Hills. Meanwhile, during the peak of his career, Walker faced a growing problem with alcohol. The pressure of Hollywood was relentless. The long hours, the expectations, and the isolation that came with fame weighed heavily on him. Drinking started as an escape, but it quickly became something more. It affected his relationships and his work. People saw a strong, confident man on screen, but behind the scenes, he was fighting to stay in control. Depression made things even harder. Despite his tough exterior, Walker struggled with feelings of emptiness. Some days, even simple tasks felt impossible. Hollywood could be an unforgiving place, and the weight of it all took its toll. But Walker refused to let it define him. He knew he had to fight back. Recovery wasn't easy. It took time, effort, and a determination that only a few possess. Slowly, He found ways to manage the pressure without relying on alcohol. Then came the accident that nearly took his life. On May 24, 1971, Walker was skiing at Mammoth Mountain in California. He lost control and fell, landing on a ski pole. The pole pierced his chest, stabbing 5 inches into his heart. When he arrived at the hospital, doctors checked for a pulse. There was none. They pronounced him dead. Then something incredible happened. A heart specialist happened to be in the hospital that day. He decided to check one last time. Somehow, he found the faintest sign of life. He rushed Walker into surgery, performing emergency open-heart surgery. Against all odds, Walker survived. Just 2 months later, he was back on set, working on physically demanding roles like nothing had happened. The experience changed him. He later said he had felt an out-of-body sensation during the ordeal. It gave him a new perspective on life. From that moment on, he lived with even greater purpose. But the fight wasn't over. Walker had one more battle to win. During his early years in Hollywood, smoking was a part of life. It was everywhere. It was even seen as stylish. But over time, he realized what it was doing to his health. Quitting wasn't easy. The withdrawal symptoms were tough. Anxiety, frustration, restlessness, he felt them all. But just like before, he refused to give in. After quitting, Walker became serious about fitness. He stayed active and focused on his health. It was one of the reasons he recovered so quickly from his accident. His dedication to clean living helped him stay strong, both physically and mentally. Fans admired him for his on-screen heroics, but those who knew his real story respected him even more. Clint Walker was more than just a cowboy on screen. He had a deep voice that could command attention, a mind that could craft stories, and a life that stretched far beyond Hollywood. Most people remember him as Cheyenne, the towering drifter from the TV series Cheyenne. But there was much more to his story. In 2003, Walker co-wrote a novel called Yaqui Gold with Western author Kirby Jonas. It was a departure from his acting career, but it made sense for a man who had spent years bringing the Old West to life. The novel follows 2 adventurers, Sam Coffey and Tom Vance, as they search for lost treasure in the harsh deserts of Arizona and Mexico. Along the way, they face dangers from the elements and encounters with the Yaqui Indians. More than just an action story, the book explores survival, morality, and redemption, staying true to the spirit of classic Westerns. Walker didn't just lend his name to the project. He spent 2 years working closely with Jonas, making sure the story had the authenticity and grit that fans of the genre expected. Readers who loved the works of Zane Grey and Louis L'Amour praised Yaqui Gold for its realism. The main characters were reportedly inspired by actors Sam Elliott and Tom Selleck, which gave the book a cinematic feel. Some reviews were mixed, and there were even rumors that Walker's sister claimed he wanted his name taken off the book. But Yaqui Gold remains the only novel he ever worked on, making it a unique part of his legacy. 5 years before that, in 1998, Walker took his deep baritone voice into animation. He played Nick Nitro, a demolition expert in the film Small Soldiers. The movie, directed by Joe Dante, followed a group of toy soldiers brought to life by advanced microprocessors. Walker's character was part of the Commando Elite, a squad of battle-ready action figures led by Tommy Lee Jones's Major Chip Hazard. The film mixed action with humor and had an impressive voice cast that included Ernest Borgnine and George Kennedy. Nick Nitro stood out for his explosive personality and lines like, "Demolition is my mission." Walker's powerful voice added weight to the character, making him more than just another toy. The film earned $71.8 million against a $40 million budget and later became a cult favorite. More importantly, Small Soldiers was Walker's final acting role before he retired. It was a fitting end to a career that had started with Westerns but had taken him into unexpected places. Still, Nothing defined his career like Cheyenne. The series ran from 1955 to 1963 and was the first hour-long Western on television. Walker played Cheyenne Bodie, a drifter with a strong moral compass who roamed the frontier helping those in need. At 6 feet 6 inches with a 48-inch chest, Walker had the physical presence of a true cowboy. But it wasn't just his looks that made the character work. He brought a quiet strength to Cheyenne that made him one of the most iconic figures of television's golden age. His impact on Western entertainment was officially recognized in 2004 when he was inducted into the Hall of Great Western Performers at the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum in Oklahoma City. This honor placed him among legends like John Wayne and Gregory Peck. The museum, filled with memorabilia from the golden age of Westerns, now includes Walker's name as part of its history. Before that, he had already earned a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame at 1505 Vine Street. In 1997, he received the Golden Boot Award for his contributions to Western cinema. These honors proved that his influence on the genre was lasting. Despite his fame, Walker chose a quiet life after Hollywood. He settled in Grass Valley, California, where he focused on his health, his family, and his personal interests. His daughter Valerie followed her own path, becoming one of the first female commercial airline pilots for a major airline. Walker's values of determination and hard work clearly carried over to her. Even though he left acting behind, he still connected with fans through occasional convention appearances and interviews. But for the most part, he enjoyed a peaceful retirement. He remained dedicated to fitness and spent much of his time outdoors. After years in Hollywood, Grass Valley gave him the quiet life he had always wanted. On May 21, 2018, Clint Walker passed away at 90 years old due to congestive heart failure. His death marked the end of an era for fans who had grown up watching him bring justice to the Wild West. But Walker had already defied death once before. In 1971, he survived a near-fatal skiing accident when a ski pole impaled his heart. Doctors pronounced him dead, but after emergency surgery, he made a miraculous recovery and was back to work within 2 months. That kind of resilience defined him both on and off the screen. At the time of his death, he was survived by his third wife, Susan Cavallari, and his daughter, Valerie. Fans around the world mourned his passing, but his legacy lives on. From Cheyenne to The Dirty Dozen, from voice acting to writing, Walker proved he was more than just a cowboy. His work continues to inspire new generations, keeping his name alive as one of television's greatest Western heroes.